Oh,
and
got it. Yes. Excellent.
All right, everyone. So hopefully you will have all been able to log into CuraCloud. If you could log into CuraCloud now, that would be really great. I'm just giving you a moment to all log in to make sure you can log into CuraCloud. So if you just go to curacloud.com, if you've not done it before, and you need to identify for me if you have not been able to get into CuraCloud by going into chat. Okay, if you're going to chat, tell me you can't get into CuraCloud, I will be able to help you.
And I would suggest you bookmark the CuraCloud once you've logged in, because you'll be visiting it often, and then you're going to put that into your bookmarks tabs at the top of your computer screen. Your browser will remember it. It's also called LT. They've changed the branding on their platform.
Yeah. All right, so hopefully I'm not getting anyone in the chat saying they can't get in. Hopefully they're all in. Great. So you'll notice here we've got the genetics units and then lots and lots of eye pathology units. We've introduced genetics this year. We've got our third teacher, Michelle, who's coming along tomorrow, because a lot of the feedback from previous years is that the genomics was hard to understand, and that it was the part of our course that was weakest. So we've got a specialist teacher to come teach it for you. The retinoblastoma and the uveal melanomas were given to you as homework. So I know that some of you have done it. We always start with this landing page here showing who we are and the recommended texts, and then go on to the actual learning site. The reason why we've set it out like this is we are putting a framework around your learning. Okay, so we do 3 steps. The first step is that you look at a virtual slide in the video. This is the initial run through, and then you get to explore what is probably going to be the photos that you would get in your exam. Okay, so we know that this is vitreous seeding, and we can go closer and we can have a look at it, and that is the actual vitreous seeding. So this is the photo that you'll probably be given in your exam, and this one here is the main tumor mass. So that's why we've done that. Then what we ask you to do is to explore the slide on your own and practice writing the answer. It's very easy for you to skip this step if you're feeling demotivated and lazy, but this is the practice answer. Okay, this is where you actually have to practice answering it, recalling it, and seeing if you can apply it. And here we have a model answer. Okay, so if you write some things here, the answer becomes live, and you can check your answer. And this is an answer that I've written that I would expect you to be able to write in your exam. So here, remember all those previous people saying you've actually got to do the work and don't try and skip the work. This is the work you need to do. And then on the next page, you get to do it again. Okay, you get to do the virtual slide again. We know the diagnosis because often the diagnosis isn't the hard bit. It's actually getting the points through answering these bits correctly. You can check for a model answer, and then there'll either be a video or a hotspot showing all the things that you should have observed. Okay, so it's important to do these when we ask you to before you come along, because it gives you the knowledge and the framework about what we want you to do in the class. Okay, then here you can this is a compulsory page in the software package where you see your answers here. You can then you can press commit, which makes us able to see the answers ourselves. The teachers see the answers. So that's how CuraCloud works. Do we have any questions about CuraCloud there, Amanda?
No specific questions about CuraCloud, just some questions about the exam format. So is it going to be static or dynamic slides for this year's exam?
Going to be static slides.
Yeah.
So static pictures. Yep.
We're going to teach you on dynamic slides. And there's a question from Pragna about in our answer format, it says clinical manifestations. Does that include signs or symptoms or both?
Good question. I would say both. Yeah,
I'd say both are relevant. Yes.
Both. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this here now, and I'm going to find my next thing I'm going to talk about, which is
answering written questions.
How to answer an essay short answer question.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of other things there that will help you. I'm going to present. I'm going to share screen. Off we go. Tips for answering short answer questions. The first thing you have to do is to understand what they are asking. So if you look at any short answer question, there's going to be some things that you have to notice. The first is the task words, such as describe or explain. The second is the topic words, okay, which are keywords and phrases, yeah, from the question. And then there's the limit words. So what would you expect to see? Yeah, so they want you to describe what you're seeing in, this is the topic word, a lacrimal band biopsy in Sjogren's disease. So I don't want to know anything at all about the fact that Sjogren's disease is more common in women, or that Sjogren's disease causes dry eye and this is what it looks like. I specifically want you to just make a list, numbered or dot pointed, of what I would see in a lacrimal gland biopsy with Sjogren's disease. Now, this sounds so completely obvious, but dear Lord, the number of answers I have marked over the past 20 years where people have just gone off topic, right? And they waste time. Often it's because they think that they can't fill up the answer, right, with enough detail. And so they go off and tell me that people with Sjogren's disease get dry eye and it looks like this. No marks there, no marks. You're much better thinking about how to structure your answer, and we will teach you this too, on how to get the maximum information down out of your answer. So here we go. This is the task words. We want an outline of the pathogenesis, clinical and pathologic features of retinopathy at prematurity. So we want 3 paragraphs, one titled pathogenesis with some dot points underneath it, one titled clinical with some dot points underneath it, and one titled pathological features with some dot points underneath it. Now, what do we mean by pathological features? We mean both the macro and the micro. So the clinical features and the pathologic features kind of overlap in terms of the clinical microscopes that you use, like the slit lamp, right? So in pathologic features, I would probably put macro, and you would write all the things you would see through the slit lamp, and micro, all the things that I would see on the slide. So that's what pathologic features means. So that's deconstruct the question. It can often be useful to rephrase the question in your own way, all right? So the first one, for example, I interpreted as, what is the histopathology of Sjogren's disease in the lacrimal gland? And that was all that was needed to be asked about. Right, and then the second one, it was write bullet points on the pathogenesis, the clinical slit lamp, and the histology of retinopathy of prematurity. Plan the structure of your answer before writing, okay? So here, we wanted to know the histopathology of Sjogren's. Now we know, you're going to learn that the way to approach any histopathology question is to think low power than high power. Okay, I indicated this when we were talking about how to look at slides. So in Sjogren's disease, you will see these things. At low power, I will see this, 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 and this. At high power, I will see lymphocytes in the epithelium. Other points, it's not clonal. How do we get to this beautiful, beautiful organization? By practice. We practice answering questions, right, and saying, have I got the structure right? Has this question got a structure? If I give it to my friend George to look at, he will comment on the structure. You might say all the points are there, but you won't get it out easily in the exam because there's no structure. Okay, so retinopathy of prematurity, pathogenesis, right? Clinical slit lamp, histology. Those are the only points that we are looking for that will give you marks. So you don't have to write screeds, you just have to plan the structure. Right, so use plain language and straight to the point, and use the words from the question in your answer to signpost the answer for the marker, which is what we were doing here. Pathogenesis, clinical slit lamp, histology. Right, so take the clues from the question. Practice writing short answers. It's the only way you will improve. Show them to each other and get feedback. But
so I've got a question here, Diane.
Okay.
About, yes, since we're talking about structure. So would an answer with just the dot points be okay as the format? If you go back to your answer there with the headings, if it's a 5-mark question, just 5 dot points like that, is that satisfactory as an answer?
So this is the plan. I would put them in slightly longer sentences, right? This should be O2, by the way. So I would, and then the pathogenesis, I would expand this a little bit.
And write a full sentence, yes?
Write a sentence, yeah.
But
so
the headings.
Where is the ridge? You know, where is the ridge? Extraretinal fibrovascular proliferation, where?
And
retinal
composed
detachment.
of, yeah.
So I would expand them a little bit, yeah. This is the plan. Okay. But I don't understand what they're asking. Okay. Right. So what do we mean? Describe the macroscopic, microscopic features and natural history. So macroscopic is what you see clinically and down a slit lamp. Microscopic is what we see on a histologic slide. Natural history is what happens without intervention. Describe the life cycle. This is a task. The life cycle, this is the topic of Toxoplasma gondii. I wonder where the cat's gone. And the ocular manifestations of infection with this organism. So this is a task. We've got to describe the ocular manifestations. What is an ocular manifestation? It is the clinical, macroscopic, and microscopic features. Okay. So sometimes it's hard to understand, but it basically comes down to the clinical, macroscopic, and microscopic features. Right, temporal arteritis topic. What are the classic histopathologic findings? They want to see what it looks like down the microscope. Describe the possible ophthalmic features and pathogenesis. Ophthalmic features means clinical and macroscopic features affecting the eye, all right, of temporal arteritis. And the pathogenesis, Amanda, people always find difficulty knowing the difference between etiology and pathogenesis. Do you find that?
They have a small overlap, but they are probing different different concepts.
That's right. And often they're used interchangeably. They aren't interchangeable, really. Pathogenesis, how the pathology is caused. So Genesis, think of God, right? If you are familiar with the Christian Genesis story. On the first day he created, on the second day he created, on the third day he created, right? It was a stepwise process. Pathogenesis is how the pathology happens. First, there is infection with herpes on the surface of the epithelium. Second, it causes necrosis of the epithelial cells. Third, there is an ulcer. Fourth, the ulcer becomes infected. And fifth, there is perforation of the cornea. All right, so stepwise process is the pathogenesis. The etiology is all the stuff leading up to it. Why did this person get a herpes infection on the surface of the eye?
So here's some elaboration that's required. So how does natural history fit into this? Is natural history a kind of prognosis?
All right, so what is the natural history? What is the natural history of herpes infection, herpes zoster infection in the eye? So the natural history is there is an initial infection, which may be subclinical, and then recurrent infections, which may lead to recurrent corneal ulceration, that the infection can never be cleared, and that it may require transplant after multiple infections. So that's the clinical history. It's the clinical course, really, whereas the pathogenesis is the step-by-step thing that happens in each episode.
Okay, so that's natural history. And then, so Jess just requires some clarification. Is ophthalmic features, is that the clinical and the macroscopic only ophthalmic features?
Yes, it usually is. It's the thing that the ophthalmologist sees with his stuff in the clinic or her stuff in the clinic.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Off
So,
we go.
another clarification, isn't the clinical the same as the macro?
It can very much be the macro, but it's also the slit lamp, which is a clinical feature, and so it's everything you can see with your eyes and the patient using the instruments in the clinic.
In the clinic stuff. So there we go.
Stuff, yeah.
And what is
the same as the macro?
Yeah. What does etiology mean?
All right. What does the etiology mean? So the etiology is the stuff that leads up to an event happening. So what is the etiology of glaucoma in, no, that's a bad example. What is the etiology of
like
pterygium?
Yeah.
Pterygium. What's the etiology of pterygium? So we know the pathogenesis of a pterygium is UV hits the congenstroma and causes inflammation and vascular proliferation and actinic change and eventually dysplasia of the surface epithelium. Right. So, but the etiology is excess exposure to UV light.
Yeah, I just think of etiology as cause. I just swap out the word. Just cause. And then when I'm writing my reports, the causes of this could be A, B, C, D. So that's it. And some other terminology words, a bit of confusion still about natural history versus prognosis.
All right. So the natural history is the unmodified prognosis. So, for example, if someone got melanoma in the eye, in the uvea, the natural history would be growth inside the eye, spreading along natural passages, metastasis, and death. That's the natural history. The actual history is detection of the melanoma and radiation and removal. Okay, so it's what happens if no one does anything about it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Right, so here is what are the pathologic changes you would see following an ischemic central retinal vein occlusion at the disc, retina, and anterior segment. Right, in chat, I want you to tell me what pathologic changes means.
So, pathologic changes. A few more, please. Pathologic. So we see a combination of macro and micro. Some people also think macro, micro, and clinical would be pathologic changes. Some people
Yes, so
also think,
macro,
what about
micro, and
clinical signs?
yeah, so clinical. So if I look at someone just like in the street, I can't see anything really if they've had that. So I wouldn't say they go blind, for example. Pathologic changes would be something that you see, like it would be you see with your instruments, you see in the clinic, but not, oh, they go suddenly blind.
Would that include the microscopic features?
Yes, it would, definitely. So
Okay.
the clinical with your instruments and the microscopic features. So you'd, get the changes at the back of the eye that you can see with your instruments.
Yeah, so macro and micro. I think we'll summarize that. Good.
Would you mind taking over for 2 minutes, please, Amanda?
Yes, no problem.
My family life has just intruded.
Right, okay.
I'll be
Deal
right
your
back.
things, okay. Yeah, okay. So, all right. So I'm just looking at the chat here about what does pathology mean? So generally, when you look at a question like that, it's asking for macroscopic and microscopic changes. That's what it means in the context of this question. And that can be what you observe with instruments in your clinic, as well as what you would see down the microscope. When we say microscopic changes, yes, if you can see it with your slit lamp, well, that's a type of microscope, but it also, this type of question expects you to describe histology, which you cannot see down the microscope. So histology is required here because the question about central retinal vein occlusion would require you to comment on the changes in the retina at the cellular level, which you cannot see with the slit lamp microscope. Okay, just clarifying a bit between different sorts of microscope. So macroscopic, because a slit lamp is kind of in between what you can see with your naked eye and what we can see on a histologic slide. So perhaps we should say histologic features. So yeah, the H&E type slide thing.
All right, neoplastic conditions. What is a neoplastic condition? Say new growth, neoplastic. So if I was asking you to talk about neoplastic conditions, I want you to write whether it means benign things, malignant things, or both in the chat.
Yep, so overwhelming consensus is both.
Yes, both. So neoplastic conditions. So that's what we mean. Otherwise, we would use the term malignant tumor or malignant conditions. Yeah. And in a question like this, we'd probably be wanting about 5. So discuss the pathogenesis and pathology of retinopathy of prematurity. So what do you think we're asking for there in the chat? What do you think we're asking for?
Okay, you can divide your question up because there's the pathogenesis part and there's the pathology part. Okay, now we're coming. So how the disease is caused and progresses.
Yeah.
Plus macro and micro signs.
Perfect.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah. So you would have a 3 paragraphs in your answer, and you would make little sentence lists under each of them, and that would be perfect. Okay, that is the end of that talk.
Yeah, so that's exactly.
That's a better idea now of what we're looking for when we ask you to answer questions.
Yeah.
Alrighty, how are we doing there, Amanda, for our things that we are meant to do today?
So all we're left is a short stretch break, and then we will do pair programming, introduction to pair programming on Zoom, assignments to complete for tomorrow, and the evaluation survey.
Okay, before we have the short stretch break, what I'm going to do is to share my screen again. And bring to your attention, okay, on Saturday, the 24th of July, these documents that you should perhaps print out or have with you when you're answering some questions. Useful phrases to have, useful phrases to use when examining a globe. Okay.
These
so
are good for your curriclouds when you're answering those questions.
That's right. So I'm not going to read these out to you. These are your reference material. So these are the things in detail that you should look for when you're examining each part of the eye. Okay, it's your checklist as you go through when you're examining the eye. And then here, oh, not that one, this one here is a similar document. Okay, where these are the pathologic alterations that you usually see. Okay, so there's the normal histology that you would observe in each place, and the pathologic alterations that you would see in each place. Okay, so normally you would see that, and so you'd expect to look for those things. Okay, so those are references for you when you're actually doing your work. All right, do we need a short break, or should we just go on to pair programming? You get to vote.
Okay, type in the chat. Do you need a short break? 3 to 5 minutes, or keep going? Keep going. Let's go on.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let's do that. So I will just bring up my last thing that I want to do, which is pair programming. This is all in cartoon format, so to keep you amused. Just organizing my screen now. And this is how we will be doing our pair programming. Share that. Just squish down everybody's view. Okay. Pair programming on virtual slides. Is that good with everybody?
That's good.
Okay. All right. And I'll just, hang on, I have to minimize that chat window, which is in the way, so Diane will monitor chat. Okay. So we use a teaching and learning method called Promiscuous pair programming. Now this needs some explanation. And this will be, we'll talk through this with Rena and Robert, who are, okay. Right, so let's just start with what has been your experience of learning pathology from virtual slides, also known as dynamic slides, the ones that you can zoom into and zoom out. If you can type that into your chat, people usually have some sort of an emotional feeling about learning from virtual slides. Here's some suggested emotions that other people have experienced. So what's happened there?
Daunting but fun. Sometimes you zoom right in and everything gets very blurry. Hard to navigate and needs lots of internet.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we would agree with all of those things, but we want to accentuate the fun part. So fun is good.
We do.
And I'm happy. I'm having trouble advancing my slides. Okay. So the technique that we use comes from computer programming. And in the past, and still many learning and teaching things are learning solo in a class. Everybody's got their own computer screen and you're sort of learning in parallel, but you're not talking to each other. But it is slow, it's boring, and people get lost. The modern way to do this is called pair programming. Now, these pairs of students are learning computer programming, but you can learn anything together using a shared computer screen. Why is it good? It's faster, it's effective, it's fun, and you learn some meta skills about group work and interaction with others. So, what's not to like about fun? How does it work? It's like a motorsport rally. So in a pair, you have a driver who is concerned with the technical aspects of driving. And then you have a second person who's a navigator who has the map and gives suggestions to the driver about where to go. So we're dividing the cognitive load, yet both learning the same thing. So when we convert this to the learning platform, there's two people sharing one computer screen, and on that computer screen will be your virtual slide, and you have a different role. The driver has the mouse and the keyboard, and the navigator has the textbook or the map. So what does that look like? Oops. I'm just trying to, hang on, small technical issue. I'm going to advance the slide separately and now share again. Okay, is that better? Okay, so the navigator has a textbook, and we would suggest that you use a physical textbook or use an e-textbook on a separate device or a separate computer screen, because you can't do both things on one screen at a time, is what we found. And then the second person, Rena, who is the driver, has the keyboard and the mouse and brings up the virtual slide. And you're both thinking aloud and sharing ideas, twice the amount of learning. So it's working together. And then for the next slide, you swap roles. So the driver and the Rena and Robert swap roles for the next slide. So you both get a turn at being a driver and a navigator. And then the promiscuous part is when we do the next session, you swap partners. So Rena is now working with Ralph, who is the navigator. And we used to do this in the classroom with laptop computers. Any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay. Now you will be wanting to know, okay,
Oh, sorry, Amanda, any reason why the recommended text is Eagle and not Sehu? And I think Sehu's fine, it's just older.
Yeah. Also AAO is good and Forrester is good. So either of those. So what you want to know is, okay, so you're learning it within pairs, but you're going to be examined individually, right? And you need to have an effective learning technique that's going to give you good results for individual performance. And what do the studies show? It has a large positive effect on individual exam performance. So there is theory behind this. And here is one meta-analysis of 3,000 students. How do we read the graph? The red line is the no effect line. You see all of the squares are on the right side, which means that pair programming has a large positive effect compared to solo programming, which means you learn it by yourself. And you'll notice that the forest plot, the effect size increases actually as the studies are more recent. That's probably because of two things. It's taught better, and secondarily, students are more accustomed to learning in a collaborative way rather than expecting to be spoon-fed by lectures from the teacher. So a large effect size for your individual exam performance. What else besides exams in life is important? Okay, it's also faster, more accurate, and people are happier. Confidence, satisfaction, and enjoyment. So all good stuff. And that's why we do it. How do we do it effectively in the online environment? Well, you have a good Zoom setup. We've practiced that. I particularly want some of those of you with a dark, shadowy face. Can you sort out your lighting before tomorrow so that when you are Zooming with somebody else, they can look directly into your eyes and see what you are trying to explain or talk about rather than a shadow in the background. And have your textbook as a separate device from your screen. How does it work in the online environment? It's like this, as you would imagine. So here we've got Rena, who is the driver. She is sharing the screen of the virtual slide, and Robert can see Rena's screen. Robert has got the textbook. Robert does most of the talking and says to Rena, like, let's look over there. Let's look at the optic nerve. Let's look at the anterior chamber. And has got the textbook and says, the textbook says, look here. And Rena is doing the driving and going there. Then you swap. For the next slide, Diane and I will put you in breakout rooms, either in pairs or in trios. If you're in a trio, there's one driver. You all share the same screen. There's two navigators. The navigators do most of the talking because Robert's mind is occupied with the driving. So we're splitting the cognitive load, yet we're getting all information in through the auditory channel, listening and talking. Okay, and then we do promiscuous, we share. So Robert's now in a different breakout room with Ralph and on a different case. So all good so far, but what can go wrong with this? I have observed this in previous sessions. Drivers do all the talking, and this, Diane, is a problem amongst surgeons. So once they've got the driving mouse, they do all the talking and they both share the screen and do all the talking. And then what happens to the navigator? The navigator becomes a passive observer and doesn't contribute to the learning pair. And Roberts has sun shining out of somewhere and thinks he's marvelous, but this is not how pair programming works. So to remind you, the navigator does most of the talking, the drivers are mostly driving. Any questions so far about that? That's how it's going to work. And if we have time, we can do a practice slide.
Okay. So perhaps, Amanda, can you put the link in the chat?
I can do that. And then you can do the, put us into breakout rooms.
And I'll put it into breakout rooms. And this is, yeah, this is a lead slide. So
whoops.
There we go. Right, everybody. So you put it in the chat and then everyone in the room can click on it and see if it opens and then join the breakout room. There it is. I'll put you in breakout rooms randomly.
Trios, I think, and Diane and I will fall into one of your rooms and assign one driver. And you're going to talk about the slide just for an example. We'll give you further directions tomorrow. Okay. Okay, we're back.
Yep, we're all back. We're all back.
Oh, I feel a bit dizzy. I've been thrown around all over the place.
I kept tossing Amanda into different rooms.
Sorry.
All right, so I think we did pretty well. We got the idea there about navigators, and the navigators have to apply the rubric, and the other navigator has to have the textbook, you know, looking things up and seeing what you can find. Right, so in the chat, would you like to ask any questions?
And I will just get the last bits up, which before you go is the exit survey. Oh, and you've got to talk about homework.
Homework. All right, I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat. I'll keep watching the chat and I'll share my screen.
So should we do exit survey first and then homework?
All right, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the chat, I'm going to put, there's an exit survey. There's 4 questions. And the way that we improve this course is by what you say. So we'd really appreciate a bit of thought into your answers. I've just lost my Zoom thing. View options. Hang on, where's my chat gone? Exit full screen. And where's my chat? So just saying, yeah, good is not helpful. We just like a little bit of thought into your answers to everyone. Click that chat link. There are four things and a sliding thing with a smiley face. It should take you about 4 minutes to do, and then you can turn off your, just do it. And then what people have done in the past, they turn off their video camera while you're doing it. And when you've finished it, you turn your video camera back on. Then we know you're all done. So you can disappear behind a black screen. And when you've done it, turn it back on again. So go.
What session did you feel like? Oh, where's distanced?
I can hear somebody. Oh, we could pause recording.
Oh, we could pause recording. Recording, share screen. Okay, homework's here for today. So you'll notice that the homework is very similar to the pre-work I asked you to do, because being a bit of a realist, I know that many of you will not have done the pre-work. So yay to those people who did the pre-work. You don't have to do so much homework today. So I want you to come tomorrow having a good textbook knowledge of the pathology. And by the pathology, I mean the epidemiology, etiology, pathogenesis, macro, micro, and natural history of these tumors. Yeah. I want you to read this article on the genetics of melanoma. I want you to do the Cura Cloud assignments on Cura Cloud here. And then this is the new one. Without looking at your notes, answer the following questions as if they were exam questions. and then look back at your notes, see what you did not remember, and practice recalling it. So the next time you answer these questions, you will get them perfect. Remember always the structures that we've given you when answering the questions and doing the slides. Okay.
Diane, I just clicked on that, the homework reading for genetics of melanoma.
Yeah.
It links to Michelle's Evolving Genomics in Medicine.
Oh, does it?
Yes. We'll
Oh
fix
dear. Sorry, I've put the wrong link in. I will,
We'll fix that.
you'll fix that. But the, that's very strange.
Hmm.
I'll just share my screen again here. The thing that we're wanting you to read is
It's also in the classroom, isn't it?
also in the classroom. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll put the actual thing up. It's hopefully you'll be able to see the Google Drive. Go
Or
to
the
classwork, you go class drive folder.
Hmm.
Here we are, and here it is.
Oh, the Jaeger one. Yep. It's got a nice diagram.
Yeah.
I'll put that in there. Yeah.
Uveal melanoma. Yeah.
Primer. That's the one.
Right. So that's the one. I will correct it just now. I'll stop sharing, but I'll correct it just now.
Okay.
All right. Great. So we're going to see you all tomorrow.
And we're done.
We're done.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for today.
Great. Well, have a great day.
Thanks.
And I can stop recording now.
Yes. Stop recording.
Will there be a new Zoom link for tomorrow?